All right, I'm gonna. You
Now,
want me to start
okay.
recording?
Yep.
All right. Hold up, hold up, hold up. There you go. Three, two, one. Boom. All right, we're back.
And we're rolling. Yeah, the thing is, I get passionate, I get inflamed about this because there's very few people who are even remotely touching on the simplicity that I've found. You see, look, if there is a God and he's called Jehovah and he loves us all, then and he's genius because he created the cosmos, then why didn't he write a book more concise over a much smaller period? Because that book, the Old and New Testament collectively, were written apparently over 1,500 years or 1,400 years, full with a whole myriad of different authors and this, that, and the other. If there was a God that wanted us, his beautiful children, to know him, you would have thought he'd made it a whole lot more simple. You would have thought if there was a God, it'd be in the sky every day. And I am your God, obey me. I love you. Oh, by the way, Ziggy, don't get picking your nose and wiping it on your mother's, chest of drawers. Oh, okay, God. Come on. It has to be a whole lot more simple. And you know what? It is a whole lot more simple. If you throw out all that crap, then knowing God, you know God with your heart. And once you've got rid of all the shit in your head, you know God with your heart. You know God with your intuition. And like I say in the book, what's the language of God? It's your intuition. He speaks to you by intuition, cosmic consciousness. That's the cosmic vocabulary, intuition. And so I
Mhm.
just rest my case. I'd rest my case with the most intelligent of biblical scholars, and I'd beat them hands down on logic and reasoning. And what they would do, they'd squirm and worm around about this means this and that means that. I'd say in your infinite fucking wisdom it does, but it
Mhm.
doesn't to me. It just means a load of bollocks. And you're just trying to make it sound like it's wonderful and it's great. It's just
All right,
ridiculous.
how would you go about telling? I mean, let's say not the person who's a little bit more privy, but let's say the average human being. How would you go about guiding them into saying, like, you said that the average human, I don't, you don't know how they can tell that this is not, uh, that this is a matter doesn't exist. It's a spiritual realm. How would you go about telling them into having a metaphysical or a spiritual experience for the average human? How would you say that they can go about having a spiritual or a metaphysical experience
Succinctly, take DMT or take another.
without the drugs? Without the drugs.
Without the drugs, then you have to have a traumatic experience. You have to have a near-death experience. You've got to have something which shakes your ego to the core, which absolutely cripples and puts the ego on the floor. Because the ego is a very powerful thing. It's the operating system for being a human being. Of course, it's got to be powerful. It doesn't want to let go. Because if you let go of the ego, then you enter into the Maya. You realize that it's all illusion. And, if there is a God, which I'm sure there is some sort of a creator which has created this individuated human egoic experience, because I know and myriad other people, spiritual people, know that once you let the ego go, once for whatever reason you get outside of the ego, you can see it as clear as a bell. And so that's the thing. How, it's Plato's cave all over. You see, what I'm doing now is nothing new, of course. They were doing it thousands of years ago. And the likes of Plato and Nietzsche and Aristotle and all the rest of them, they were writing about it because they realized the same thing. That the vast majority of people are sheeple, they're completely asleep, they're automated, and that they will never wake up. And like Plato said, if he, and Carl Jung, he was, prolific at saying this. If you try to shake people out of their somnambulism, then they'll want to kill you. Because the last thing that they want to do is for you to break and shatter their illusion. Because the vast majority of people are not, they don't have the metal to be able to deal with that. And so that's why I think there's only very, very few of us that have these actual experiences. I was a man of the world. I was a member of the full contact British karate team, fighting bare knuckles, to represent my country, traveling around the world, with a knife in my pocket, truncheon in my bag, and all over the place on my own. I would tackle anything, whenever it came. And so having done all that sort of stuff, I guess the universe just considered, okay, he's ready now.
Get inside. Oh, Aaron, give me a second. Get inside. I saw what you did. Do it now. Go. Sorry, my son is being a fool.
Yeah. And so then, I was delivered this demolishing blow to the ego.
So you think there's no other way to have a spiritual experience other than drugs or trauma or anything like that?
No.
Like I'm talking about, okay, do you consider the spiritual and metaphysical experiences the same? Or are they two different things?
Well, metaphysical is, I would think, the same thing because it's outside of the physical. And so a spiritual is outside of the physical, and metaphysical is just different terminology. But what I know is when I've listened to a myriad of gurus speaking about their moment of enlightenment, and it doesn't matter who you speak to, they've only ever got one, and usually it's just some sort of a notion that comes about where the whole world goes still and they realize that they're an integral part of it and we're all one. Krishnamurti, for instance, he had one out-of-body experience in his whole life. And that's what he depended on. Jordan Peterson, are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I don't listen too much. I mean, I've heard a few things that he says, but I'm just not really too
all I'm
interested
saying is because he's one of the most pronounced intellectuals at this moment in time, and everyone's took to him. But he's done 7 grams of, I'm assuming it's cubensis, because you couldn't take 7 grams of semilanceta. That would put you in a coma. But so he's took 3 because being an intellectual and being, having spiritual experiences, he's had these sort of experiences whereby he was in contact with God. He's done videos about it. All of a sudden, his consciousness dissipates, and then he's out there, and he's got this wonderful feeling of connection. It's like the Christos, rose in him momentarily. That's what these enlightenment experiences are. And so once he's had that, he wanted to know what the fuck that was. And so then he went on. You wouldn't think a college professor, other than, of course, Timothy Leary and Ram Dass, Richard Alpert, you wouldn't have thought anybody, or the other people in those institutions would be running, to have psychedelic experiences. But the point is, if you really are desirous about knowledge, you know that unless you are blessed by the universe with a near-death experience, and you don't really want one of those, then you take psychedelics, and then it fills in so many gaps. And I'm seriously, I beseech you to take some DMT, because you're in and out in 5 minutes. You've got minimal anxiety. You just smoke it. You can do it in a vape if you're not used to smoking anything, because it is very harsh. But once you've been into that world, you're gonna look differently at the cosmos.
Aaron, you watched my psychedelic videos?
Yes.
The ones. Okay. I know that you said that I went all over the place with it, which I do agree. But do you have any kind of opinions on what you heard on those videos at all?
Well, what you were saying about lots of the benefits of psychedelics, you were spot on with those, having not taken them. And so you knew fundamentally, intellectually, what they give you. But it's the actual experience now that you would benefit from. And so you've been out of body, so you know that it's a little bit like that, because what happens is when you go out of body, you pretty well dissociate from your ego, and at least on lots of occasions when I was out of body, my ego was about at 10%. It was somewhere drifting, very dreamlike, in the corner somewhere when I was having this, astral experience where 90% of my consciousness was there. But when you take a high dose of psychedelics, 0% of your ego remains. You fucking take liftoff into the cosmos, into cosmic consciousness, and there you've just got a whole different ball game. And it's very similar to people that have died and all this different sort of things. And so, because I've now done that, 300 times, I've seen a lot. And now I look at this, and because I've married everything up, I've married my psychedelic experiences up with what they were saying in the Bible about God in the clouds and, burning bushes and walking on water and all that. They were tripping, man. The tabernacles that which they, carried around the desert for 40 years, and white smoke was coming out of them, and any unauthorized people going in them would be struck down by God himself in an instant. They were doing psychedelics. That's why they were the priests, the secret priests, the hierarchy, and this, that, and the other. And that information has been passed down to these people for millennia. They were doing it in the pyramids. They were doing it in fucking Timbuktu. They've done it all over the world. And that's why these people have got all these different stories about all these different entities and this, that, and the other. It just takes you into a whole different dimension. And that's what, how many people have you heard which have said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if you put acid in the drinking water?" And then the whole city was tripping. Well, as soon as you have one, psychedelic trip, then you've woken up. And it's like, the Beatles, all of a sudden they started tripping, 67, and all of a sudden, poof, their music changed in an instant. They weren't recognizable. Their clothes they wore, the music, their lifestyles, they just completely changed. But this is why people don't want to do it. This is why Neil deGrasse Tyson, he ain't going near no fucking psychedelic because he's terrified of the ramifications, because he just end up in his fucking garden staring at the fucking cosmos all the time. You wouldn't want to be fucking reading books or doing math anymore. You just want to be out there, absolutely amazed every single night. That's what it would do to people. And that's what it's done to me. You could say it's ruined me, because, lots of people say, "You're so clever and you got so much energy. You could do this and you could do that." I go, "I've fucking done it all. Whatever I wanted to do, I've done it all." And now, if I'm ever going to do anything which is going to impress people, then I'm going to do it with my pen. For the very few that are going to be able to comprehend where I'm coming from. I don't like the facet, because it's the facet of ego whereby I get larger than life, and then I'm belittling and talking down to people. But for 14 fucking years, I've been saying, "Come and talk. If you know something, come and talk. Come and tell me your experiences. You've done this, you've done that. Come and tell me. Let's talk about it. It'll be great." And then when nobody comes, you've got to start thinking, why? Why isn't anybody coming? And then people start saying, "I can't work out whether you're mad as a hatter or you're a genius." Well, that's because you evidently aren't a fucking genius or anywhere near. Because if you were a little bit near being a genius, you could see that all I'm saying isn't stupid, it isn't crazy. And you can find all I'm saying out there in different scriptures. People, I'm not the only person on the fucking planet that's, put this stuff together. But they're very, very far and few between. And like you said, sorry, one more thing. I think what happens is, Ziggy, is that by the time you've worn your throat out, you just give up, because there's no point. And then what you do is you become like Mooji or Sadhguru, and you get paid like 75 grand, for a couple of hours conference, and you wear your fucking robe, because under normal circumstances, these people just wear jeans and they wear Ray-Bans the same as everybody else, by the way. But whenever they go on stage, they put a turban on and a fucking, Indian guru suit, because it pays. Because if you're sitting there, if for instance, if Sadhguru showed up in his training shoes and his jeans with his Ray-Bans on, like I've seen a photo of him, if he showed up, people would go, "The fuck's he? Where's Sadhguru?" You know?
Yeah.
But he has to play the game, and then he's quiet and and then says, "In it, isn't it, isn't it?" What I listen to these people and I go, "What the fuck do they say?" They're not actually saying anything when you listen, and it's like these people have all paid good money.
Yeah. You know,
Well, know what happened there?
I forgot what I was going to say. The camera went out.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
In those DMT videos I did you hear the part where I was talking about awake but dreaming? In actuality, still having, this is why I asked you this, like still having a metaphysical experience in the physical, not just basically coming from a space of like just going through trauma or doing like extensive shadow work or anything like that. I'm basically saying like in the same way you putting life uh, into a metaphysical or spiritual experience. So, for example, I spoke about how you start creating your avatar, you start creating your world for the afterlife, let's say, or even just having a thought and writing that thought where you're creating a reality, and you're literally having almost an astral projection in the physical realm while you're awake. So awake but dreaming, like you're daydreaming, they say. Or even so immersed, like I spoke about when I was gardening, and I'm so immersed into something I love doing that I lost perception of time. I lost uh, you know I lost track of the fact that I even had to eat. I wasn't even hungry. I basically, everything was just numb, and I was having a metaphysical experience in the physical. And since we know that your spirit is your space, you're technically having a spiritual experience in the physical realm. There's different layers of kind of like how to say. That's why I asked you, how would you tell a average person, you know, have a metaphysical or spiritual experience? I mean, are they going to just dive deep into just go do drugs, you know what I'm saying, or just have a traumatic experience, you know what I'm saying? Like when I look at the drug part, if you haven't strengthened your foundation or had a understanding of, like, again, we spoke about the hermetic principles, just basically understanding that foundation, I feel like it would basically hurt them more than help them. You get what I'm saying? uh you know it's like you know uh, when you don't have a strong foundation and you try to put a lot of weight on top of that, it's going to crumble and fall apart. That's why people lose their mind. That's why people tend to have, bad trips and whatnot. It's not necessarily just what's in them that is showing them that, demonic or dark side of themselves that they've hid in the closet, but it's just basically what they can and cannot handle at the same time from the level they're at. So I wouldn't recommend drugs at all to a person who's not there. When I said just an individual, I would always say, do what you love. You know what I'm saying? Like, but to find what you love, you got to find that love frequency, that love within yourself, and know yourself to an extent of what you love to do. You know what I'm saying? Some people are doing, and they think they love to do it only because of others doing it, or, let's say in the family there was a generation of like carpenters, so that person thinks they have to be a carpenter, but yet they don't really love doing that. But I feel like the creativity and that spark, or in whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a spiritual thing. You don't have to be into like retreat or healing centers or anything like that. You can find that spark in just simple, being an auto mechanic. If you just truly love that, you'll find that bliss. But it ties into other things. It bleeds into other things. That's why I said I ran a supplement company for a while. I lost the passion to it, but I felt like I loved it so much. I excelled at it. I did it so well. Yet when I kind of started to look into other areas that started to spark my interest, I didn't necessarily have to leave that industry. That industry kind of left me. I got laid off, believe it or not, regardless of me being the number one market manager in the country. It's crazy. And I said, how did I go from this to this? And it's like, I'm a big believer in your life changes and molds to you. And but you got to have no fear. Let's say, for example, if I'm in a state where I'm in a job, but I really hate it. There's always people who say, well, find something you love about it and work on your projects on the side. But what if you just did it where in an instant you said, no, I quit my job now because I know my job, my passions are gonna flourish. There has to be a real. This is where the whole faith and belief in self and and basically just knowing that everything's going to be okay. Like people say, oh, I left it in the hands of God, or people follow synchronicities and whatnot, right?
Yeah, you just
But
go
that,
with whatever you feel to be the case.
yeah,
Now,
it's like a
you-
feel.
look, when you speak about psychedelics and
Mhm,
speak about you wouldn't recommend it to this person, that person, and the other. I wouldn't recommend psychedelics to anybody
mhm.
who I didn't consider was of
Ready, yeah,
a stable enough mind to be able to deal with them. Um, Now, what you've conveyed to me first and foremost, I know that you're guided by spirit because you
yeah.
was working in the high powered thing and you've got a load of money, but you didn't like who you were. You weren't that great of a person. And so all things, you don't know why you got laid off when you was top salesman. Spirit knew why. It knew
Yeah.
that you needed to go down from New York into a more sedentary, natural environment to get your fingers in the ground, to get cats and praying mantis and things like that, because that's your connection to cosmic spirit.
Yeah.
And so now you've got that. And then when you go into these spaces in your garden, you are having a spiritual experience. You are absolutely in the now, you're present, and you're having an ego death because you've forgotten about all this stuff. You're completely immersed in the moment. So that's your quality. Very few people can do that.
Right.
Gardening or concentrating on anything or having an involvement with anything for more than 10 minutes is almost impossible these days. And so that's why I say that, as and when it comes about, Spirit will deliver it to you when the time is right. Someone will just say that you trust, that they've got some DMT, and you'll go, oh, yeah, that's it. Thank you, universe. And then you'll have a little go of it, and then you'll see what happens from there on. But as far as I'm concerned, DMT is the most beautiful thing that I've ever encountered. It flushes the whole mind and body with youth. It takes 10 years off of me. It brings a zest and a youthfulness into my whole life, mind, and body. I look at the world in absolute awe. They have an afterglow for about an hour and a half. It's absolutely incredible. And when you take it open eyed out in nature, you just see the world like Avatar and you see faces and creatures in absolutely everything. You know that the whole world, cosmos, is just alive. And
Yeah.
it's beautiful. It's loving. It's benevolent, and there's nothing sinister. There's nothing remotely, evil or negative about DMT, unless you're a psychotic person and you have like what's called a bad trip. But if you listen to any sensible psychonaut, they will tell you that there isn't no such thing as a bad trip. You may have a good ego kicking, but you deserved it and you grow from it. At the end of the day, that's how it works.
You know how I looked at the people who've lost their mind, or you just said something that kind of sparked something of interest in me when you said that it ruined you to some extent. So there's multiple versions of Aaron Berry. There's multiple versions of myself, right? I feel like let's say if you went completely bonkers and you completely lost your mind, you exist somewhere else, in my opinion, and you're not here anymore. But I'm observing you, or that potential of myself just not here anymore and somewhere else in actuality. It's kind of like when I said if you die, I mean the world is done. Like there is no world. Yet you're there, but you're existing here. Your body's here in it's not fully online, of course, because you're outside of the matrix. That's why you appear to be bonkers. But the real you is just basically probably somewhere else. You get what I'm saying? Because I've seen there's certain people who just completely lost their mind, went psychotic and whatnot. And, that person really isn't psychotic. We perceive them to be psychotic, but that person is somewhere else.
Have
It's
you
just that there's many different versions of them.
have you listened to a video by Eben Alexander?
Mm-mm.
Eben Alexander was or is a neuroscientist. He was a neurosurgeon, and he caught a rare strain of meningitis, and all of his peers and colleagues and everybody said that he slipped into a coma, you see, and they said that, well, the chances are he'll die, he'll be a cabbage, and if one chance in a million he survives it, then he won't recognise any of his family and anything like that because he'll be a cabbage. He came back from being in a coma for about, I think it was about 11 days or something like that, and he made a complete recovery. He travels around the world now, doing conferences and everything. He's wrote books about it, and he says for every single second of that 11 days, he was aware he was in another dimension, and he was all different sorts of things pertaining to spirit and God and everything. This is coming from a man who's highly
There you go.
respected in that field, and this is what we need. The world needs more people like him, and there's
Yeah.
another one, Jill Balti Dandy. She had a seizure in her left hemisphere, which locked down all of her language and communication skills. But she went into the most beautiful place that she could ever imagine. And so when the ego is turned off, that's when we become God again.
Right.
Because we're
Right.
just having this dream. We're just being dreamt in the mind of God, you know.
It's funny because in actuality, nothing bad could really happen to you in any kind of way. Let's say if something happens where you say, "Oh, I lost my mind," and now you're in a, like, others are going to perceive your human vessel here that way, but you're really not in that state. You're literally somewhere else. That's why I feel like there is a possibility that you ever hear parallel realities. Like, I look at this like this person, like, let's say I met this lady in Tennessee. She said that her dad has dementia and he's dying, but she says that she lives in a single wide, but in his mind, he's in a big house and he bought a brand new truck. And I can't, like, stop thinking about that because I'm like, well, he's in a paranormal reality. He's literally there, but his body's still here. Until it goes, he'll fully be in that reality, if anything. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's why I feel like if you're here and you're using your consciousness, let's say, how do we know if that person never created the afterlife, right? Let's say whatever it may be, you could create an avatar, a different world. How would you know what to create afterwards if you can't fathom anything other than humanity? You get what I'm saying? So let's say somebody says, I want to evolve beyond humanity. Well, what do you know what beyond humanity is? You can't fathom. What are
Well,
you creating if you don't even know what you're going to create?
yeah.
Like the person that's there in dementia has a brand new truck, a big house, yet he's in a single wide with no vehicle. He's just an old fucking fart. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yet he's like Rico Suave in his reality.
So, I mean, he's got a dream, and because we are all God, then our dreams manifest. So, even before he's died, because the ego evidently is almost dead, and so therefore he's almost passed over, and his dream reality is making manifest. Now, there's a guy who has wrote books
Doesn't
about.
that stop and make you think, like, what happens if that's really happening to us even now at this moment?
Oh, I
Where you
mean,
swear you're a real boy, yet you're really not. You're somewhere having a dementia and you think you're here, like, having this experience, and it's actually real. You get what I'm trying to say? It's like
yeah,
so many fucking questions that you
I,
can ask.
I'm absolutely an advocate.
Like, you may be having a dementia. You may think you're the smartest dude on the planet, and meanwhile, that could just be a fucking the result of what we're observing by
Yeah.
somebody else. You know?
Well, do you remember Steve Jobs on his deathbed? It was kind of like, oh wow, just before he died.
Mhm.
Okay, so he
No,
says,
I didn't hear about that, but tell me about it.
yeah, so he was with his daughter apparently, and just as he died, for a couple of seconds, I think he opened his eyes and he just went, "Oh wow!" and then he passed away. So he'd evidently seen something. Well, when you listen to all these near-death experiences, everything like that, there are loads of people that told you that whoever's dead, the spirit will come and sit next to them whilst they're passing over, and then people will say, "Oh, I can see Auntie Sarah and Uncle Jimmy and all these things." And no, you can't. They've been dead for like 20 or 30 years. No, they're here with me now, stupid. And all this sort of stuff. This silly ego thing. It's just nonsense. And I'm convinced that we create our own reality, and because of what I was doing, and how I was increasing my state of awareness. I'm absolutely convinced that we do create our reality. I did it with this, with the threepenny pence piece, the coin. I did it with the pink football. I've done it with lots of other things. Whenever I've applied myself and I put my mind to it, I make it manifest. There's been times when I've been walking out in the regions of the woods and fields where I haven't been before, and then I've said to myself, "Fuck." I'm getting a bit weary now. I want to sit down somewhere and eat my sandwich. I walk around this corner of the field and just there's a random bench just sitting there. And you go, well, I couldn't see anything. All I could see is fields, fields, fields. And then, just as I say that, around the corner, then there's a bench. This happens so many times. And I was,
Yeah.
working this out with other friends, and they were doing the same thing. The world gets very, very phenomenological when you apply yourself to it. Now, the thing is about what I'm saying and how I'm conveying, and how I'm speaking. Out of all the people that listen to me, there's never been anyone except a Christian that's ever leveled delusional at me, or that, I don't know what I'm talking about, this, that, and the other, because they can't. Because if anybody is remotely intelligent or well read or anything like that, then they will have a glimmer of what I'm speaking about, and they could check the things I'm speaking about, against a billion other YouTube videos of near death and astral projection and, a relationship with God and, angels and everything like that. If you go on the internet and you put God in the sky, there'll be like thousands of pictures of clouds and stuff which look like God, and then loads of CGIs and this, that, and the other. Well, I seen it in real time on DMT. I know where this stuff comes from. And I know where the stuff in the Bible comes from. It's the most logical, rational, and simplistic. It's Occam's razor. You just go back to the most fucking simple thing. And that's it. Is there really a God in the clouds? No. But there is these sort of things that you can see when you take drugs. When you take something that shifts your consciousness, yes. And then you say to yourself, well, is there a God? Well, I mean, we're God, because basically once you step outside of the ego, then we're anything. We're light being, we're pure consciousness, we're all different sorts of things. And when you look at what the human beings get up to on this planet, and then you people like Jim Carrey, his story, he wrote himself a check for $100,000. He carried it around in his wallet and he's still got it today. He wrote it $100,000, and that's the first check he got paid when he made Dumb and Dumber. And so he created his own reality. But for about 15 years prior, he was like, doing, little joints, pubs and this, that and the other. Because he was a novice and he was young, he was always last to go on. So he was sleeping on nasty, grotty, like pub benches and this, that and the other. And then he'd find the inspiration and the energy to put his bit out there. He created his own reality. All these people, they create their own reality. There's no doubt about that. The only people that don't believe it are the people that haven't created anything.
They are creating, they're just not aware they're creating. That's the whole thing.
They're creating their shit lives there, by all accounts. But, the people that in California, millionaires, this, that, and the other, if you said to them, how did you get your money? And it's because they would say, well, I decided this, or I thought about this, and I implemented that, and I put all my energy into this. Yeah, well, they created it. The chances are they never won it on the lottery, and it wasn't given to them by the rich daddy. No. So.
No, and they've got to, I'm going to tell you right now, they got a different mindset than what your average person that I speak to here is. The whole thing is I've known them for 21 years. You get what I'm saying? Middle class, just like I am. It's just amazing to me how they had a paradigm shift in 2 years, and they just did it by investing their money in like stem cells. They opened up, they don't know shit about fucking stem cells. It was just basically like a student. They grabbed the fucking doctor student and they used his brain to basically run the laboratory, and then now they partnered, and that's basically how they blew up. And they hired other scientists after that. But it's just networking. It's one needed one thing from one person, the other one needed the money, and boom, it worked.
Yeah, it's the
You know what I'm saying? It worked in their
circumstances.
favor.
You look at Bill
Yeah,
Gates' story. He pilfered. The vast majority of stuff that Windows ideas and this that, and the other. It was all stolen, and then the only reason that he made it is because his parents were wealthy and they were in Congress and they were in business and they knew the people on the board of IBM and all this sort of stuff, and they said, "Oh, I want to give you this. My son's come up with this. What do you think about that?" And then they had the money to fund it and all these circumstances,
yeah.
that's going on. And so,
I made a lot of videos on like like the whole money thing and how it's a tool, but I've got a lot of different uh, perspectives and what I spoke on when it comes down to the benefits of like how people are like portals, bro. Like there are opportunities that they may have as something that you may not have. Like for example, they had the money, but they didn't have the doctorate. But you know what I'm saying? You saw them working together, they were able to blow up, and then from there it was just like now it's just networking into different areas. They've got a second laboratory they're even opening up where they've even told me they want me to move down there to work with them. It's
right.
not something that I've had planned yet, but in actuality, I mean, it's something that I can always say, man. I mean, do you know how many people actually say, "Oh, I'm a millionaire," but then there's some people who don't have millions but can say, "Well, I have access to $1 million." I think
Yeah.
it's like the energy the same way. It's like nothing is yours. Like the spiritual currency, anything in the universe, it's basically it's not about how much you own. Is do you have access to it? Do you have the portals? Have you opened up the opportunities? Have you made the space for it? Have you made the network? Have you and it's like I see how it works literally as within, so without. But how I'm looking at the blueprint out here is exactly how it works within. But the only thing is, what's happening within, we don't see the insides of ourselves. We don't see it. We only see the outside. So we kind of like put all our energy toward the outside, but never really put the energy toward how the insides of our work. When in actuality, without the insides, you cannot even have the outside. It's kind of like you can't have black. I mean, you can't have white without black, or you
Well,
can't have one without the other.
the inside is projected onto the outside. The outside is an
Yeah.
illusion, you know. And
Right.
so, just as an aside about how I've left all my friends and family. I don't speak to any of my family except my daughter. Still very close to my daughter. But say like my sister, 2 years younger than myself, and then I've got an elder brother, 2 years older. We were close when we were young, but then the trajectory I took was a world traveling, massively experiential life where they have lived in the same houses, done the same sort of vocation, and never barely ever been abroad except like, over, to the adjacent country for a 2-week holiday. And now I can't speak to them. And the reason why I can't speak to my elder brother is because he's vastly envious and intimidated because he can't keep up. If he ever wants to engage in a conversation with me, I lose him in about 3 seconds. And he's one of these that likes to think he knows it all, but he can't remember things. He gets everything mixed up and he'll read a few lines in the newspaper and then imagine the rest. Whereas me, I'm very methodical and I'll read and read and read and read and read and I'll know everything and I'll just make him look stupid. So he doesn't want to have a relationship with me and I don't want one with him.
Mm.
My sister, who's younger, she remembers me as this fun guy that she used to live with. We used to live together, we used to go partying together and all this sort of thing. But since my world travel, I've come back now and she wants me, expects me, demands that I am the same person that she grew up with. And she won't accept it. She doesn't get it that I'm not that person anymore. I say I'm not that person. That person died a long, long time ago. No, he's not. You just think you're this because you've read a few books. I want the old Aaron back, this, that, and the other. I say there's no such thing as the old Aaron. It's just a fantasy in your mind. Can't you see that? But they
Yeah.
can't. And so this is how people are in their, myopic mind. And then, I walk around the streets and I carry a staff and I'm always in the woods and this, that and the other. And my sister and my brother live in a very close proximity. And sometimes people see me and they'll report back to them. Oh, I saw Aaron the other day. He's mad. He was singing to a car. and I'm like singing to a car. Well, you see, I'm often singing when I'm walking around or whistling and this, that, and the
Mhm.
other. And it's just people's interpretation. They see the beard and the hair. What's happened to Aaron? He's got this big staff. He's weirdo now. He takes mushrooms, and drugs, and then that's it. And then they interpret when you're singing and looking at a car, maybe looking around, you're singing to a car. And then this is bandied around. And then my sister's texting my daughter, is Aaron all right? He was seen singing to a car. They'll probably try and arrest him, if he's seen doing that. Oh, come on. You
Yeah.
know, uh,
Aaron, what do you think the best way for a person to overcome trauma, or let's say, if you know that there's people who've caused the trauma to you, what do you think the best way to overcome that it would be?
to overcome your own trauma, if someone's caused you trauma,
Right. Or either way, or either one of the two. What do you think the best way to overcome that
let it go.
in either perspective is?
Let it go.
Let it go and yeah,
Let it
just
go.
forgiveness, right? And I
Yep.
believe forgiveness. See, because the whole thing is that it, it even like when we hear Egyptian mythology, and when now we start to hear like once you die, your heart gets weighed against the scales of Ma'at to see if your heart's lighter than a feather. I think that the cause of all corruption and diseases here comes down to uh, lack of forgiveness and not letting go. It's kind of like even if your body doesn't take a shit, I mean, it's literally going to be the cause of some type of disease. But that heavy heart, that heavy feeling is what weighs you down and ages you quicker. It ages you quicker. It prevents you from moving forward because it's kind of like you're carrying an anchor with you. But the reason I ask this is I've had even certain scenarios. I got a situation where I have a very good relationship with all my family members. With my mom, I didn't have a good relationship growing up. She caused a lot of trauma to me, a lot. Um, Drank like, and she's still an alcoholic, but she changed a lot through the years, and I think through age, it's kind of changed her, and she's had no choice but to change.
Yep.
But I also noticed that upon forgiving her, she changed, and I don't know if that it maybe it was that in an alternate reality, you know what I'm saying? I once existed in that way, but we spoke a lot about memory, and nothing really exists until it's just your present moment. But I really look at my relationship with my mom now, and it's like amazing. It's like I'm talking to a completely different person that I did not experience when I was younger. Yet those traumatic moments did have a long lasting effect on me into adulthood. Uh, and I started to realize that, especially doing a lot of shadow work, it even brought me to tears. It made me feel, I don't even know how to put the words into it, but I realized that a lot of it had to do with forgiving my mom.
Because my mother, she bailed out on us when I was 4. My elder brother was 6, and then 2 younger sisters, the youngest one 1. She decided that she didn't want to be a mother anymore, so she ended her life. So from that point forward, I had a choice of whether I was going to be bitter and a victim, or whether I was going to go, well, thanks, you did me a favour, and I was going to be strong. Because if that's sort of a person you were, not prepared to stand by your kids, well, I was going to get that all of my life then, wasn't I? Because you evidently weren't strong enough to see the job through. And so what I've done all my life with everybody, my friends and lovers and everything, and all my YouTube channel, I start on the premise that we mean to go on. And from the very get-go, I set out to challenge people, to compromise them in any way I can. And that way, I know that we're at the earliest opportunity, I can separate the wheat from the chaff. And now, when I've got people viewing me, the vast majority have been viewing me for years. They've seen me with all of my antics and all my cage rattling and all my jousting and this, that, and the other. And the ones that can get through that and still think that I'm all right, and they could sit down and have a beer with me because they know I am all right, then they're the
Right.
ones that I want to hang around. All the rest of them, it's only a matter of time before they're going to do some shit, and you just say to yourself, why didn't I see that coming 10 years ago? Why do they have to fucking wait for it to happen now? No, I nip it in the bud. I give people the opportunity to show their real colors in an instant. And
Right.
you know, you don't have to. I would never steal from anybody. I would never compromise anybody in any unfair way. I will just give them an opportunity to let themselves down. And when
Right.
I'm speaking in my videos, broadly, I'm not aiming at anybody. But then when you get someone, you with a fucking, you go, wow, look at what we've got here. You know, look
Yeah.
at who's took it all personal. What's going on there? I think there's something you need to look at. Because it isn't
Mhm.
me. Why are you taking it out on me? You think I know you? You think I was talking to you? I've got no idea who you are. What a silly Billy. And you just look at people and think how stupid they are when they get involved in this. Oh, he's an idiot. He thinks he's this and he thinks he's that. I'm just fucking around, throwing words out, throwing scenarios
Yeah.
out. And if you bite it, I say I'm an angler. I'm an angler. I'm just fucking fishing. And I've got different bait every day. And I'm just seeing who I can land. And that's why I do the
Yeah.
Christian things. Because
Yeah.
there's nothing worse than hypocrisy. And when, you know, I've met too many people in my life that I'm under no doubt about so-called religious people being the most disgusting and you know, hypocrites and just all the rest of it. And so all you do is like you just lay something before them and see if they take the
Yeah.
bait. And the thing is about the that thou shalt not judge. You know, don't
Yeah.
judge another lest you be judged. Well, okay, so if that is one of the major tenets of what Jesus' message was, let's try them with that one then. Let's see if they want to judge me. So I'll say something about, you know, Jesus and God and this, that, and the other. And then when they start to judge me, I'll go, hang on. You've got Christian in your name, trusting God or Jesus' love, and this, that, and the other. And you should well know that, you know, judging is something that he detested, and, you know, all this sort of business. And yet here you are, spitting venom and all different sorts of ad hominem and hate and everything. Look at yourselves. That's why I
Yeah.
make these videos. It's an opportunity for you to be disgusted with yourselves
Yeah.
and make sure it doesn't happen
You know
again.
what's funny, Aaron, is I realize this too. My sister's worth every penny she and maybe more. So if you look at her work, I mean, she's got to be.
But she should
I'm
have
not
given
saying
the
this.
opportunity. Do you want it
She
or not?
no,
She should
but
have
here's
given
my
you a
point.
contract.
Here's the thing. If she's probably one of the most creative people I know. The problem is, and here's the thing though, I couldn't afford it at that time. But you know what's funny though? If she was to tell me now that she was to do my son's birthday, I would pay her and probably give her a tip because that's how much better off I am now than I was back then.
Hmm.
But the funny thing is, it's just how life is. And this is where I'm starting to sit down and ask myself, well, why did it happen in that order? Where I couldn't afford it, it caused us not to talk. But if it was to happen now, oh, I could pay her now and probably pay her double. You get what I'm trying to say? And it's so funny how life plays out because I couldn't pay her then, but I could pay her now if it was happening in a
Yeah.
different time, you know.
Well,
And
you know,
I would say yeah because you deserve that creative. But I don't agree with the fact that she gave us the price at the end. She should have given us the heads up on what it was going to come out to before she did all that crazy shit. You get what
yeah,
I'm saying?
absolutely. So what I always do whenever there's changes in my social life, or you know, whenever I had one, I just look at it as an opportunity to focus on something else. I go, well, look, I don't believe that, you know, I have any autonomy or jurisdiction over my life. And even though I've, you know, owned my own businesses and I've set out to achieve this and achieve that, I just don't think that this thing is responsible for all that. Because even when I don't endeavor to do this and that, then things come my way. And I believe that things come my way because of how I am, because of what, you know, I've done in my life, what the sort of person I've been a very giving, generous, helpful person. Just whenever I've had money, I've always given it. And this is the thing that all my family will say. They'll say, yeah, Aaron's very generous and very thoughtful. He'll do this and he'll do that. And I've always done that. And, I'll even give if it's my last, $20 or something like that, because I'm never afraid that there's more going to become. Because if you live with poverty in mind, then you'll create your own reality. So don't live with that in mind. Live like I said to you last time we spoke. I live like I'm a millionaire. I'm just spending on anything I want, but the money just keeps coming and things just keep coming to me. And I I'm an adherent to the universe will look after you. It says in the Bible, it says about people who have doubt that they're going to be looked after by God. So they should have faith. Throw everything else away. Just have faith and love for God, and you will be catered for. Because he says, if God caters for the sparrows, how great are you in God's mind than a sparrow? And yet the sparrows don't ever have to worry where their next meal's coming from. All these animals, they always seem to manage to survive. And so, therefore, then, you will be provided for. And you see, what I've come to understand about the Bible is that it's all speaking about you. It's not speaking about a God, other than the fact that you are God. When Jesus is saying, don't judge, there's debate after debate after debate what that really means, because it doesn't make much sense in our social environments today. We need courthouses, we need prisons, and we need all these things. We need a level of judgment to keep people in line. And countries need to keep other countries in line. We need to judge them and tell them we're not in agreement with what you're doing. You best stop it, otherwise there's ramifications. Now, that is one facet of it. That's the ego facet. But you see, many of the things in the Bible, they're speaking on a spiritual level, and people have to understand them on a spiritual level. When you look at do not judge on a spiritual level, then every single time you do not judge, you gather up treasures. Every time you keep your mouth shut and don't pass an opinion which may remotely offend somebody, then they will never do the same to you, the chances are. And so therefore you win in both scenarios. You win by not opening your big mouth, and then you win by them not retaliating. So you're winning every single day. When you're winning like that, you're living much more of a pleasing, sedentary and calm life, aren't you? So that's why we shouldn't judge. But intellectuals, they'll over intellectualize it till the cows come home without experiencing it. And so all I say to people, all you've got to do to understand the Bible is to look inside your own minds and your own hearts, and then you'll experience everything. And the thing about faith, I had a whole chapter on faith because it was very important to me when I was in such a conundrum, because I couldn't even imagine what the concept of faith is, because I've never had a belief system, a blind belief system. I've only believed in my reality. I create my own reality, and if I haven't experienced it, it doesn't exist. And so then I looked at faith, and I was asking all these so-called Christians, well, what does it mean? And they couldn't tell me. And I said, well, can you tell me what your relationship is with God? And they couldn't tell me that either. And I was like, well, I can tell you that God spoke to me this time, he spoke to me that time, Jesus spoke to me, and then this, that, and the other, and you can't tell me any of these stories. And yet I don't have faith. What's going on? And then I concluded, and I would say to them, well, it seems to me the reason why I don't have faith and I can't grasp that concept is because it's alien to me, because I don't need faith, because I've got the real thing. I've always had a connection with God, with spirit. I'm a spirited human being. From the get-go, I was. And that's why I couldn't grasp why I would need to invent having a relationship with spirit. It seemed fucking absurd to me. Until I'm like, wow, that's it. Because only some people are spirited. You're a spirited person, Ziggy. Very few of us are spirited. When we meet a spirited person, we know it in an instant. And so then, if you don't know it in an instant, by their fruit, you'll know the tree. And so it's as simple as that. And so then when you look at people that disappoint you and let you down and attack you, for absolutely nothing, then you can see what tree they are, because their fruits are all rotten. And so,
Mhm.
when we look at our own psychology and our own hearts and our own minds, if we are spiritually intelligent people, that's the thing, you see, because very few people have all those qualities. And so, but when you do have those qualities and you look around for the people that have them, very far and few between. And that's one of the biggest conundrums and questions that I have in life. I say, where are the others? Where are the others? Where are the ones that have integrity? Where are the ones that really do love? All these religious people, they're killing in the name of their God. When their God says, well, the Christian God says, Jesus at least said you shouldn't kill. Of course, Jehovah, killing was cool. Muhammad, kill was cool. Allah, kill was cool. So you think, well, what sort of gods are these? Well, they're all the demiurges, they're all the false gods. There's nothing real going on. It's all asked about face. It's all an inversion. It seems to me that the serpent was the real God because he was the one that offered you choice. You be your own person. You be your own man. You make your own judgments. And if you judge other people, in time, if you're intelligent, you'll realize that judging isn't probably going to fare too good for you. It's all simple. It's all
Mhm.
elementary. It's all cognitive behavioral therapy, if you ask me. And yet, people can't see that. They think there's a God in the sky and all this sort of thing. This is where God is. It's your consciousness. That it's the elephant in the room that nobody wants to speak about. So what do you think about that? Why do you think, well, other than the fact that it seems like it's impossible to discern, because it's like asking a fish what it feels about the water, fucking water, And so we're in consciousness, and the vast majority of people don't know they're in consciousness. And if you ask them what it is, they've never ever given it a thought. And all these people, these scientists working at CERN, I guarantee there's never been a single one of those which have just lied in bed at night thinking, what is it that enables me to think? I think I'll start working on that. I think I'll look for a job which is going to be paying me, 50 grand a year to look for the nature of consciousness. Instead of looking at particles, smashing particles together, trying to find God, what about looking for the fucking thing, that's looking for God with? Because you don't even know what that is. And that seems to me the most elementary of thing. And yet, you've got people running around chasing their tails, thinking that they're intelligent. So when you look at the world, don't you think that the world is mad?
Yeah. The world is mad.
Yeah, it's stupid. The whole of humanity is in a very, very bad way. Look, I'll tell you what I've got here. You know me. I don't work. I don't intend to ever work again for the rest of my life. And so what I've done is I've printed off here the Slavery Act. And the Slavery Act says that nobody should be forced into labour if they don't want to, and especially if they are physically or mentally ill. And so, therefore, that basically it says our rights. And here there is the Article 4, which is protects your right not to be held in slavery or servitude, or made to do or forced into compulsory labour. Now, the whole world is under compulsory labour. From the moment we leave school, we are forced into compulsory labour. Now, what I'm going to be telling my government is that I'm going to present this to you. If you want ever from this moment forward to tell me that I should be looking for work, then I'm going to be addressing that. And so I want to see what you say about that, because what they do is, Ziggy, in all their writing, when they are trying to get people back into work, they're manipulating and mangling and forcing and coercing and bullying, all this sort of stuff. And they're always saying, well, it's for your benefit to get you back into work, to give you the opportunities that you deserve. I'm going to say to them, I don't want to work. I don't intend ever to work again for the rest of my life because I don't believe it's conducive to my health. What do you think about that? What do you think about people who say that, well, I don't ever want to work and my country should pay for me to live every single day of my existence? I didn't ask to be born here. I was born here into a prison planet. And it just so happens that it's a hierarchical system and it's set up that way, but it's not in compliance with God. And they know it because the world's laws, which British law basically is the law of the world, it's got provisions like this which protect the sovereign being. And you know, when I went to the States, I got into the States on my sovereignty because America told me under no circumstances are they letting me into the States unless I was fully vaccinated. I wasn't vaccinated. I did get into the States because I laid on them that I'm a sovereign being and they have no jurisdiction over me. And so they couldn't argue with that. The United States of America couldn't argue with that. The British government can't argue with this. When you present to them your sovereign power, they can't fuck with that because there is a God here and they all fucking know it. And so British law is premised on natural law, God's law. And the Jews, they're absolutely premised in cosmic law. And, you know, this is why they run the world under their jurisdiction. And they are very, very careful about what they say and what they do. And all the machinations they're doing, they will cause wars all over the place. They will never start war. They will never be involved firsthand in war. But they will talk to bring an energy, and then they'll let other people do their fighting, and then they'll sell them, both sides, their armaments. That's what the Jews do. If they think that they need a population control, they'll start machinations here and there, just like they did in Iraq. It was all conspiracy. All these wars are all conspiracy. Hardly any of these wars start of their own accord. They're all big business, bankers and armament companies that are starting these wars. But the fundamental premise of all this ticket, there is sovereign law. There is a cosmic law and they know not to fuck with it. And that's why under all of the machinations, all of the bullying, all of the beguiling that they lay on you, if you present them with fucking God's law, they're fucked. And so if I said to this, the vast majority of people, they'd go, oh, we're the taxpayers, we're paying for you. No, you're not. No, you're not. You know, when we're born, the birth certificate, the maritime law, there's an amount of money allocated to each and every single person born. And it's in the thousands. That is our bank account. That is money that pays for us. Should we be ill? Should we not work? Should anything happen to us and the government needs to pay, that money is generated for that specific. So what I'm doing, I'm calling on that money. Nobody's having to work to fund me, and particularly because the money's all fiat in any case. It's not backed on nothing. It's just fucking paper. And it's only all the people out in the streets that think it's real that keep the illusion alive, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, it's a path. Let's say the path you took, the whole working, the slavery. I agree with that. I don't think anybody should be forced to work. The thing is that they're from the moment they come in here, they're born, and if you don't discover what it is that you love to do or really want to do, then you think you have to work for somebody to sustain yourself. The whole thing is that, in my opinion, I don't think there's anything more beautiful than making money doing something you love to do.
Yeah,
I mean, this is just my opinion.
I used to love it.
Yeah, you know, yeah.
I really did.
And the path you took, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, you pulling for, because it's absolutely true. There is a certain amount of money allocated for each individual, depending if they got injured or they're ill or, something that prevents them from doing it. 100%. It's a different path. It's all the path that I don't agree with is the fact that you think you have to go to work to sustain yourself and live paycheck to paycheck. I think that's slavery. Yeah. And that's only an effect of you not knowing your potential or what what you're good at. I feel like you should discover what you're good at. When you discover what you're good at, you'll do it so good that you become. It's kind of like, I look at it like this, man. At what point do you grow up and leave your parents? You get what I'm saying? You become self-sustaining. Your parents, you are under their care. They nurture you. They take care of you at a certain age. They may even give you allowances, right? At what point do you get up and, become your own man and do your own thing out in the world? I kind of look at it like that. Uh, and it's the same thing I'm talking about from a totality standpoint. At what point do you just surpass this human level of thinking and just, basically become your own individual sovereign being, and that's it. Like, you're just not dependent on the system. Like, look, you could take small steps. As far as, like, I came here, I'm growing my own food, and it's not to say that everybody needs to grow their own food. I mean, it's just a path. You get what I'm saying? I don't buy certain things in the supermarket anymore only because I'm growing my own things. You know what I'm saying? Like, in the springtime or fall, I mean, I'm growing things. Like, it's not just the summertime, but there's winter or closer to winter foods you can grow, like basically beets, celeries and stuff that you can't grow in the middle of the winter because it bolts, because it doesn't require that much of the extreme temperatures. So just becoming a little bit more intelligent toward the things you could do in your reality, become a little more self-sustaining, and that's it. Because you could fall into many rabbit holes. You could fall into, oh, the water has fluoride, and the food has got so many drugs that it's gonna close your pineal gland. You get what I'm saying? But you get to a point where you can eat whatever the fuck you want and you give it meaning. You know what I'm saying? So it's, at the end of the day, none of this shit to me matters as far as like what they're proposing as far as straw man and whatnot. I mean, I'm doing my own thing. I feel good the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep. The moment I feel like some things are interfering in my life, then it's because I'm letting it into my life to some extent that is materializing in a way that it's interfering with my life. It's kind of like somebody saying, did you vote for the president? I'm like, it don't matter if Biden's the president. It don't matter if Trump's the president. I wake up the same way and I go to sleep the same way in the same conditions if one president was there and if the other president was not there.
Yeah.
It only becomes a thing when the moment I vote, they took my currency by just participating in it to further energize that system of the voting system to polarize to something, because it's all ran on dualities, but it needs your participation. And I feel like, you're right. The less you participate in the fucking structures they give you and just do your own fucking thing, you're literally surpassing the human level thinking that they're trying to get you to, that keeps you entrapped.
Yeah.
It's that human level of thinking,
And the thing is about it, when
because you're not that fucking straw man,
no, no, exactly.
So you got to think beyond that.
Yeah, when you know that they have created the straw man, when you know that there is universal law, when you
I'm sorry to cut you off. Before, I just don't want to forget this part. Look at when I got a speeding ticket. You saw when I told you about that, I was kind of indifferent toward it. I didn't give a fuck. In my mind, they didn't give me a speeding ticket. They gave my straw man a speeding ticket.
Yeah.
Now here's the participation part. If I started to get emotional about it and started to complain about it and got reactive about it, it's no different than me voting for a president. I just literally polarized to fucking entertain that system by getting emotional. Meanwhile, if I know I'm not the straw man, why the fuck do I need to get emotional about it?
Yeah.
The real me doesn't have to get emotional because I'm not human, and that's a human activity, is to be emotional. You get what I'm saying? And that's actually a feminine aspect if I can't even control an emotional aspect. Even though you have control, it's a masculine aspect, it's still a human aspect. That's why I was indifferent toward it. I'll take care of it. You get what I'm saying? Just so that it doesn't get out of hand. But at the end of the day, it's the emotional part that you're not entertaining.
Out of one hand into the other. It's currency, like you say. So
That's
it goes this
Flow it.
way, but then because something's gone that way, something's got to come this way. Because there's got to be a flow. There has to be a flow all the time. And if you think in abundance, then there always will be. You're only going to end up in poverty if you create your own poverty, your own idea of it. And then when people are sitting in doorways with a paper cup, they've completely resigned themselves to poverty, because that's the epitome of poverty, sitting in the doorway with a paper cup. It doesn't get any worse than that, does it?
Yeah.
And so when people sit down and do that, then that would be their oyster.
Well, suppose it that, let's say we want to call it the universe. Supposedly the universe is a separate entity observing you and taking orders from you. The fact that I'm in my now moment collecting change from people, it's kind of like that's the signal I put out to get more of that in return. It's kind of like if I sit in a restaurant and make an order, it's kind of like serving me and I'm getting back what I'm asking for, and it doesn't have to be in a way that the human levels does. It's just action. It's just what you're doing, what you're participating in. The universe takes orders and gives you back whatever it is that you're dwelling in that now moment. And then when things happen later on, you just stay in that same loop because you stay in a victim mode now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
So just move out of victimhood and into a realm of abundance. Now, what I did one year, I come back from living abroad, and I don't know whether. I think it was probably Bulgaria, and I was waiting for somebody to give me some money that they owed me, and it was about £5,000, and he wasn't paying up, and so I had to come back to my own country. And sign on, onto the benefit. But before I did that, I thought, well, I'm going to see if it's necessary to sleep in doorways. And so I made videos about being homeless down and out in London. I call these videos. And so what I did was I went to the unemployment office and I said, I've just come back from living abroad for, a couple of years. I want to claim a benefit, and they said, oh, because you've been out of the country for more than 3 months, we can't give you anything for another 3 months. And so I said, well, okay then. I best go and look for other avenues there are, because if the government is telling me just because I've been working abroad, I've been exercising my right to work in another European country, and now you're telling me that you can't give me anything because I've not been paying tax in this country, well, I think that's wrong, so I'm going to contest that. And so I started contesting it, and after about 3 months, as it turned out, I won that, and I got all the money backdated to me. You see, they will try to put you in a position of being a slave and being the underdog and not having any power. But if you contest all these things, then and if you contest them on natural law and rational thinking, then you'll beat them hands down every time. So I beat them then, and I got all that money backdated. But in the interim, what I was doing, I was going around London thinking, well, okay, what outlets are there where I can eat and where I can sleep? And so I discerned that there were places, hostels for homeless people, so you could go and you could get your head down there. And then there were soup kitchens, and then there were charities which were giving out bags of food and this and the other. And so I discovered that, it wasn't necessary to sleep in the doorway and beg with a paper cup. I was eating salmon sandwiches, every day, because this charity, they were getting the sandwiches which were 1 day old from this prestigious sandwich making company which sold salmon sandwiches and gourmet sandwiches and all this sort of thing. And as soon as they got past the sell by date, which was 1 day, because they're very prestigious, then they give them to the charity, and so we could eat those. We would get all these foods for nothing, and so therefore, I discovered that it wasn't necessary to sit in the doorway with a paper cup. You could actually live on salmon sandwiches and hot pots and this, that, and the other. It's just a state of mind, and because I never.
What did that have to do with the guy that owed you £5,000? You said.
Oh, because I had a building project in Bulgaria, and I needed that money to continue with it. So
Did he ever pay you?
No, he didn't pay me.
No.
And so that was an issue that I've had to deal with for. He paid me a bit of it. He paid me £1,500, but he was pleading poverty, and he owned a lot of property, and he was Indian, and all these properties that he was telling me that he couldn't sell. I went round and I saw them, and I discovered that they were sold 2 months ago, 5 months ago, and he'd just be telling all cock and bull stories that his missus that has left him now have got lawsuits and this, that, and the other, just dishonest and despicable. And I thought, well, I could, go low, and I could start doing things to him. But I thought to myself, well, the universe looks after me. The universe looked after me then. The universe has looked after me ever since, and I've never even needed that money that he owed me, because I wrote it off. But if I didn't write it off, and if I, got very angry about it, then I was doing myself a disservice, because what I was doing, I was saying to myself that I'm not capable to continue without that. And as it happens, I proved that I was completely capable
That was the whole key right there, bro. Is the fact that you wrote it off. So it's kind of like you let it go.
let it go.
And see, because here's the thing. Let's say if you didn't write it off and you were constantly at war with him. Let's say, for example, you were seeking the money that you felt you were owed by the state. It would have been a lot harder only because you never wrote that off. So it's kind of like this. It's kind of like do unto the others as you would want done unto you. You wrote it off, you let it go, but you opened the door or made space for something else to come in, and that's why it was easier to actually allow that money to come in from the state or whatever. You found it may have not even been easier. You may have just found the means to do it because you let it go. You just knew what you had to do.
Yeah, well, the thing is with the state, I could beat them with logic and pen and paper. With this so-called friend of mine, I would have to resort to threatening him. And then if he called my bluff, I would have to, do something. And if I didn't want to do it myself, I'd have to hire somebody to do it. And it can just get out of hand. I didn't want to carry the weight of it. I just thought, I'm walking away. I'm a better person than you. I've got more than you. I'll always have more than you. Goodbye. And I never spoke to him.
That was the key, though.
Yeah, and so we create our own reality. If we use our intelligence, then we can overcome any issue that we ever have. And 90% of all the issues that we're ever going to have in life, we can get a resolve on them just by letting them go, just by diminishing the ego and just writing it off. Write it off. Stop focusing on the negative. Focus on the positive. Focus on what doors are going to be open. Focus on how other money is going to be coming into your life. Because if you focus on that, then the chances are much more money is going to be coming. But if you focus on the money that you've lost, that's the only money that you're ever going to get coming. And so it's the same energy, only it's been channeled into a different direction, isn't it? And one direction is complete abundance, where the other direction is very, very channeled and minuscule.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So
what other topics did you have in mind? I know you had a paper there. I don't even. Did we cover what we had?
Oh my God, we didn't cover nothing. we started on.
I somehow knew that was gonna happen, bro. I think I'm gonna tell you right now. At this point, we might as well start our podcast, because imagine if we had to cover every time we had a topic. It would, like, you had 10 topics. That would be like 10 fucking classes we would have to do.
Yeah, you see, we start on one topic and then we go into another billion that lasts, for hours and hours and hours, and that's just the nature of it. But we've already done 2.5 hours now, and so if it's 11 o'clock here now, evening, and so if we wrap it up in 10 minutes, that'll be good. But
I'm down the road.
The questions
I'm down to wrapping it up and then just like cover all the other stuff. Maybe
we'll cover the other stuff. It's kind of like, is life a dream? Is there a God? What are we?
Those are deep things to get into. We'll be here for another 3 hours talking about that.
We'll go on forever with all those. But these are the sort of things that thinking people have been asking for millennia. These questions,
and I would love to get into those topics, though.
Yeah, well, we'll do it next time then. Give it a week and then we'll be back at it again. But for sure, they're questions that never get old, because there's so many facets and possibilities to them, and we're never going to know any of these things.
See, I'm going to mention this now just so that I have it on record so I don't forget. But there's actually like topics I want to go into that kind of tie into the topics you have there, which is, the stuff we experience, like Mandela effects or like deja vus and stuff like that, and why there's so much question to, questioning realities and whatnot. Like, let's say, at one point I remembered that in Star Wars, Darth Vader said, "Luke, I am your father," but now it's like all of a sudden he says, "No, I am your father." I don't remember it ever being like that.
No,
but what does that mean, right? That means that we are experiencing a different reality now. It's not to say that that's not how it happened. It did happen. But I'm telling you, that'll go into real deep depth because I'm telling you, we're gonna need another like 2 hours to just talk about that because I got a lot of different points I would like to cover when it comes down to that and just how we see
Well,
life overall in
the one we
general.
can open with is the Mandela thing because that is a very,
Yeah,
very perplexing existential topic. It's proper out there. And I had a friend of mine who was living down in Spain, and he had we was doing all this stuff together, looking into the law of attraction, the Mandela thing, and he swore that he had a garden hose which he used to fill up his outdoor swimming pool that is a prefabricated thing. And so
yeah.
every year we'd get in the springtime, he'd get this hose pipe out and then he'd fill up his swimming pool. Well, as soon as he discovered the Mandela effect, that spring he went to get his hose pipe to fill up his swimming pool, and it no longer reached. It was about
Ain't
10
that
feet
some
too
shit?
short.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
The
And
pool
well, I
never
mean,
moved. He never cut anything off of it. There's
that's
nobody else that
insane.
could have cut anything off it because only his wife and his 10-year-old daughter lived in the house, and he'd only used it last fucking summer.
That
Honestly,
only
mate.
goes that like what's crazy is that if you change your present, you could technically change your past. It's some weird fucking crazy shit.
And the
Like
thing about it, this Mandela thing, once we shift consciously
yeah,
to enable that to be a possibility, we're creating
yeah,
our own reality, and it
that's
does
right.
become possible to us. These
That's right.
fucking things happen.
I made a video on like how you observe the reptilian side of you in real time, but we're looking at these people like we say, oh, they're reptilians and all these. Like, remember I talked about how we are basically observing the ego side of ourselves. We're basically more of an advanced technology than they are because we are actually reptilian ourselves. It's just that they have their fucking shit all falling apart because they're fucking like less. They're more obsolete than we are. You know what I'm saying? I look at ourselves as more of an advanced technology. We're just a supercomputer that we're not utilizing, and that's why we don't realize or understand what our full capacity or our full potential are. Because if we're observing the fact that through a Mandela effect, we just changed a reality. Imagine the type of things we're able to do consciously and not just say, oh, what a coincidence, or, we call it a Mandela effect. It's things that we are actually doing. You know what I'm saying? It's a technology that we're not exercising, something that we are not realizing we can actually do. And we're putting all this power to, the powers that be or all these things outside of ourselves. But in actuality, we're really the ones doing it,
Yes, we're
except
the ones
they
doing it.
give you they give you all these proposals, through the media and whatnot. And the fact that you engage in it, it's just how you diminish your power and
It's
give
an
your power
energy.
away by
It's an
believing it.
energy transfer,
Right.
guided by thoughts. And so we'll wrap this one up there because that's the beautiful thing. We can open with Mandela and continue with tulpas and egregores, the
Yes,
energy
that's another
form.
big one that's important. And
Yeah,
here's the thing, though: they can, they're not really changing reality. You're changing it. It's
yeah.
just that they give you these things they present these things to you, and once it's in your psyche, it becomes a part of you, and it's up to you to actually hold on to it or let it go. If you hold on to it and you do it unconsciously, you literally are changing your reality. So it's not like they're doing anything. You're doing it to yourselves because they can't do nothing to you. The only
No.
way they can make you they can the only way they can control you is by making them do it to you, by you actually consenting to it and believing it to be real. You get what I'm saying? It's kind of
Yeah.
like even somebody calling me a psychopath. I'm not a psychopath unless I believe the person, and I kind of hold that as a possibility. Well, maybe I am a psychopath, and basically all the points that they gave me, and I believe that to be so. I literally just created that by somebody else actually crystallizing that for me in my reality.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in another topic because that comes down, a lot of it is thought forms and how they make you think you're not more than what you actually are. And it's a worldwide hypnosis. That's what I feel like everybody's under. And since I don't know if you said you're a hypnotist, but I'm a,
Yeah.
a certified hypnotist.
Yeah.
And I want to get into topics like that because it all comes down to altered brainwave states, how certain suggestions are given to you, how certain subliminal messaging is in backgrounds of certain things, NLP, neuro linguistic programming, all that affects the psyche and it's mind viruses. But mind viruses could be good or mind viruses could be bad. But I'm only talking about it just to have it on record and we can actually remember to talk about it. But those are things I want to get into.
Yeah,
And I think those are very interesting topics that we
most,
can dive
most
into.
certainly. And it's just kind of
Yeah.
like uh, if we see a magic trick and we don't know how it's done, as soon as we know how it's done, then there's been new neuronal passageways in our
Neuroplasticity.
mind. There's new concepts.
Right.
There's a whole new dimensions been opened up because of how we were deceived,
That's
because
right.
of what we didn't know. And so as soon as we switched on to all these things, that's when we become much more open to everything. Okay, so yeah, it's probably dark where you are then, mate. So
It's
well,
it's dark already. That's why you can't see me anymore.
this is
I'm
bang
just
on
moving my
one
my
hour
car back.
30, so that's a good time to wrap this one up then.
Yeah.
And so then, yeah, just leave it a week and then we'll do it again then, Ziggy.
Yeah, phenomenal conversation, man. I appreciate the talk.
I always do.
As always, man, it's like, I think again, I haven't found somebody I can fucking talk this long, other than my brother-in-law, which is actually a shame that we don't talk anymore. But hey, shit happens for a reason, right?
Yeah,
But
what goes on comes around.
yeah, yeah. But hey, man, like again, much. Thank you for the time. Great
Thank
talk
you for
again,
your time.
and
Always a pleasure,
looking
mate. And
forward to doing it again soon for sure.
yeah, most definitely. So have a good week. Enjoy your weather, by the way. Kind of
Yeah.
envious about that. But yeah, talk to you soon, mate.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
Cheers,
Later, man.
mate. Bye. Yeah. What then? I've got I'll put that one under there. Yeah. You don't love me, and I know. Oh my God! I've been standing for 3 hours. Well, better than sitting down for 3. Better than sitting down for 3. Again.